Okay, Thunder Wizards, today we're going to be talking about the Sun in the seventh house as your Arudha Lagna. So the Arudha Lagna means the mount of the Lagna. The Lagna is your rising sign. This, by the way, is Vedic astrology, not Western astrology. Please do not try and apply any of this to your Western astrological chart because your Western astrological chart will be off by 24 degrees. Your sun may be in a completely different sign and different house. So please don't apply it. I recommend, if you've been doing Western astrology your whole life and you're a big believer in astrology, I recommend getting a Vedic astrological reading from a qualified Vedic astrologer, because you're going to see the difference. Vedic astrology is based on the sidereal zodiac, which is the actual sky shining down on you. 2,000 years ago, when the Greeks and the East Indians learned this astrology from a city-state that no longer exists, that created this science, they both went back to their homelands, the Greeks to Greece and the East Indians to India. And the Greeks ended up adopting the tropical zodiac, which is a faulty calculation. That's the bottom line. People can say it's the Earth relative to the sun and all that, but the truth is it's a faulty calculation. It was accurate 2,000 years ago when they developed it, but it is no longer accurate, which means that when you look at your Western sign now, it's going to be 24 degrees off of what was really going on when you were born. It means that your sun could be in a completely different house. So we're using the sidereal zodiac in Vedic astrology, which gives an accurate calculation of what was hitting you when you were born. So your Arudha is a great way to say it is the reflection of your Lagna, the reflection of your rising sign. Your rising sign is actually your sign again. This is something we do differently because in Western astrology they use the sun sign. The sun sign is your internal ego, your internal experience of your own identity. Very important, but it's very internal. There's an external one, which is your rising sign, and that is actually your true personality because it's how you view the world. I was born a Leo. That means I view the world through the sunglasses of a Leo. I see that from a Leo perspective. Doesn't matter where your sun is. If you were born a Capricorn, that's how you're going to view your world, is through the eyes of a Capricorn. And so from that is going to be your mount, which is how your rising sign, how your personality travels through the world. So there's a way to calculate that. What you do is you look at the sign that is lording over your first house, and whatever the planet is that's lording that sign, if it's Capricorn and Saturn, you would look to see where Saturn is. If Saturn is in your fourth house, then you would count 4 places from the fourth house, which means you start with the fourth, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the seventh house would be your Arudha Lagna. Now, here we run into something I need to explain because many astrologers, in fact, many of the ancient astrologers, believed that the seventh house cannot be an Arudha Lagna. So they would say you go to the natural house of the Arudha, which is the 10th house. Now, the 10th house is your fame. It's not necessarily your Arudha. But I disagree with that, and there's a lot of other astrologers whom I respect who've also disagreed with that. And like them, I have looked at many readings, and now that I look at a bunch of different readings over the years, I see that the 7th house can be an Arudha. The Arudha is not just the reflection, because that's the idea. The idea is that the 7th house is already the reflection of the first, because the first house is the self, and the 7th house is the other. That's why it's the house of your spouse. But I do believe that the 7th house can be an Arudha. So if you have Sun in the 7th house, it means that people see you, number one, as a king or a queen, because the Sun is royalty. The Sun rules over our solar system. and the sun is your soul. It rules over your life. So they see you as a ruler, a leader, natural performer, somebody who lets their light shine. This is what they're going to see when they look at you. And the seventh house has to do with relationship. Now, the seventh house is the house of the spouse, but it's also the house of relationships in general, your friends, when you go out in the public. So if you have the Arudha in the seventh house and you have Sun in the seventh house, it means that people see you as a very social person. They see you as the life of the party. You know, the sun walks in and everything brightens up and everybody looks to see the king or the queen walking into the room to socialize. That's what the king is there to do at that point. If the king was in the third house, the sun was in the third house, they would say, oh, the king is going to make a proclamation, and everybody would shut up and listen. But now the king is out to party. He has made his proclamation, and now he's in his court, in his room with, his private room with all of his ministers and his friends, and he's going to party it up, and he's going to say, okay, you dance and you play music and let's drink, and he's going to do whatever he does, or she's going to do whatever she does. Maybe it'll be a fashion show, and she'll stand there and say, all the ladies in waiting, let's have a fashion show. Who the hell knows, right? But this is what the sun in the seventh house is. The sun in the seventh house means that you are very vibrant, you're very dynamic, you're very warm and personable and fun and smiling and happy, and you love to socialize. You love to go to bars, you love to go to concerts, you love to have dinner parties at your house, you love to host. This is how people see you. Now, what happens if you don't feel that way? Too bad. That's how people see you. Now, here's the thing you need to know. Your Arudha isn't who you think you are. Your Arudha is who other people think you are. And so if you want to be successful in business, if you have sun in the seventh house, let's say you're a salesperson. So sun in the seventh house doesn't mean that you're going to make your money from standing up and making sales presentations. You can do that. What it means is that if you really want to close that client, you're going to take them out on the town. You're going to be one of those salesmen that says, hey, let me know when you get into town because I want to show you around. And there's this one bar that you should go to. And you're going to take them out on a night on town. And after socializing with them, then you're going to close the deal. Maybe you don't even talk about the product that you're selling because they had such a good time and enjoyed you so much. At the end of that, they're going to say, okay, you know what? I've decided I'm going to be your client. So whatever it is you do for a living, this is what it means. If you own a restaurant, then that means that you are the person who goes around the room in your restaurant and you're going to be, giving people drinks and pouring their drinks and sitting down and how are you enjoying your meal and, all that kind of stuff. And here's what I think you should get. This is our favorite. We got this over from Maine and the lobster, blah, blah, blah. So the seventh house is the house of relationships. So if you have sun in the seventh house, it means that also people are going to see you as a dynamic partner. They're going to see you as, the opposite sex is going to see you as somebody who really, is going to be a dynamic partner. They're going to say, oh, this person's definitely, if they're not married now, they are going to be married. So the sun in the seventh house means a dynamic marriage partner. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean sex. Sex is the fifth house, could also be the 12th house. Okay? So that is my take on what if the sun is your Arudha Lagna in the seventh house. The last thing I'll say about this is my experience. I could change my mind about it, but there are some Arudhas that have very strong karmic past life attachments, which means that your Arudha will be challenging for you. You will have to get over your own ego. You will think you're being humble, when in reality, it's your ego trying to avoid it. I've had that. I don't like the idea of being the warrior, of standing out and being the warrior in the world. I don't like that idea because I didn't like bullies. I was bullied as a little kid, And so I don't like bullies. And so when I see somebody who comes off as a warrior, I want to kick the crap out of them because they remind me of the bullies I grew up with. I don't want to be like that. But if I try and suppress that, I end up looking like a killer. I end up looking like this really mean, scary guy. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to look humble. It doesn't work. When I was an actor, I remember, went to these acting workshops, and there was one for commercials, and I had to, they filmed, videotaped us doing a gum commercial, and I remember holding up the gum and trying to say, buy this gum, and ended up people looking at it going, you look like you're going to kill somebody. That's not my Arudha. My Arudha is the warrior. So you have me play the warrior, the intense guy. That's great. Some happy guy gum doesn't work. It's not my Arudha. It doesn't matter how I feel. Your Arudha is the same. If you have a strong ego attachment, it means that you're not going to feel comfortable with your Arudha, which means that you are going to have to deal with your ego and just suck it up and be that, because that's how they see you anyway. Basically, get over yourself. The seventh house, because it's already a social house, and because it's not a true Arudha in that sense, because it's already the reflection of the first house, it means that you probably don't have as big of a karmic ego issue associated with your Arudha. You're probably more comfortable with being the social butterfly. Now, I could be wrong, but that is my experience. So that's my take on that. So that's it. If you want to find out what your Arudha Lagna is, which means the success that you will have in this world, the costume and the person that you should be out in the world, go to astrology.thunderwizard.com and get a reading from either me or one of my apprentices. If you want to hear more astrology from me, I will be doing more astrology videos. Click the subscribe button and hit the bell button so you know when I've uploaded a video. All right, that's it for me. Next, we're going to be talking about Sun in the 9th house, Arudha Lagna. All right, talk to you guys soon.